This is Spinster number 1, Jessica here with Spinster number 2, Kelly, and we're here with some extra content for you guys in the month of April. Considering that we were both home a lot and are watching tons of movies, we decided to do this fun little thing where there are certain films within the horror genre that both Kelly and I either love together or feel is overrated. Opposite. All right, Kelly? Like, you've had a better discussion.
Yes. So Jess and I agree on tons of different films, but there are some that we disagree on, some that I find overrated, that she finds that she loves, and vice versa. So we thought with this free fun month, and yes, the pandemic, we've got some extra time, we thought that we would start what we're calling Spinster versus Spinster. And the movie for debate tonight is Dario Argento's Suspiria from 1977.
Oh, goodness. Yes. So as it's known, if people have obviously listened to this podcast for the last year and a half, is I'm a big fan of the Suspiria film, both the original and the remake. I've watched it so many times since I first watched it with Kelly many, many, many years ago, and she fell asleep on the couch.
I'm going to chime in. Yes. So I have now seen this movie 4 times. First 2 times I fell asleep. That time that I showed it to Jess. Did I just bring it up thinking that you would like it?
Yeah, you did. You were like, we were looking for a horror movie. It was like, you're up and visiting me in Ottawa, and we're like, we're going to watch a horror movie. And I'm like, and you brought it up, and you're like, I think you will like this. And I watched it, and you fell asleep.
I totally did. So watched it twice, fell asleep twice. The 3rd time that I saw it, it was at a Guts for Laughs event here in Toronto, where it's a bunch of comedians do live roasting of horror movies. And it was so fun. And it was the first time that I saw it awake from beginning to end. And it was hilarious because I think it's very worthwhile making fun of. So, and then okay. I watched it the other day for this. So if folks, I think you may or may not know, but yes, Jess loves this movie. And it's actually, I shit you not, on Jess's top 5 horror films of all time.
She
thinks it's so good. It's in her top 5.
It is in my top 5. I have watched it many times, multiple times. I went and saw it in theaters when Arrow Video, I believe it was, released the retouched up version of it. And I saw it at the Mayfair Theater. It was a midnight screening. It was amazing. I loved it. And then I was also, just last year, when Goblin came through Ottawa, they did where they performed live the music and they played the movie at the same time. And so I've seen it multiple times and I have a poster of it on my wall from that event. So yes, I love this film.
Okay, well, let's get started. Why don't you start telling us why you love Suspiria so much that it's in your top 5 of all time?
Okay, well, number 1, it was my gateway film into Italian horror. And so as people have heard in our earlier episodes, Kelly and I did a whole foray into Italian giallo horror, and Suspiria was the one that introduced me to it. And so that's why I have such reverence for this film, because I was able to discover Dario Argento, I discovered Goblin, and from there I just went down the rabbit hole of Lucio Fulci, Mario Bava, Claude Simone, I can't say his name. Claude Simone. Yeah, and we met him. Simetti, yes, and we met him at Horrorama, and oh my goodness,
Maurizio,
yeah. So my whole love for Italian horror started because of that film.
Okay, all right. So I don't know if I knew that or not, but I could see, So would you say, are you maybe then a little biased?
Damn, yeah. No, I think I think it's a good film. It merits being its own good film on its own, not just being, because obviously over the years, I've watched other Italian horror films that I like a lot, and I think are up on par, but they just don't fall into my top 5. But I think they're really good films. A Suspiria maybe better than a Suspiria, but for me, my top 5 is Suspiria.
So sorry, guys. And we're also recording this, so folks, please join our Facebook coven because I will be uploading our Skype video so you can actually see this happening. And yeah, join it. And you can actually see the behind the scenes spinsters, or maybe a little bit of spinsters after dark. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, so join the coven. You'll see us. Yeah, so this movie is lauded as like this cinematic masterpiece. I actually have a couple quotes here. When I quickly did a Google search today, I'm like, why does the world love this movie? Like, I know, but like, what are some quotes? One quote is, a hallucinatory, erotic, still terrifying Italian horror masterpiece.
Okay.
I would disagree.
Okay. And why would you disagree with that statement?
Hallucinatory? No. It's very straightforward. It's not very dreamlike, surreal, erotic. That's not an erotic film whatsoever. And terrifying? No. In my opinion, is not a scary movie.
Okay.
One of the other ones is like one of the greatest horror movies ever made. Of course, like it's in a whole article and whatever.
Yeah,
and that was like
yeah.
a very bold claim.
Yes. Okay.
Another one, it said, Suspiria is first and foremost an exercise in atmosphere, drawing power from confusion and disorientation and leaning into its nonsensical aspects. So I understand that there are some scenes and some aspects of this movie that, yes, are illogical. And I think that that'll stem from a lot of Italian horror. And we talked about that, yes, in our Italian horror episode, that sometimes shit doesn't make any sense. And you don't ask questions because it's Italian horror. It's weird. And I get that. And you're either charmed by it or you're not. Yeah. And most of the time, I'm charmed by it. The vast majority of the time. But some of this was just weird. Like, for example, and some of the dialogue. But again, I think it's Italian horror. Like, the dubbing's a little bit off-putting sometimes.
Yeah.
The woman... And I totally forgot it. I only know one person's name, and that is Susie. And so the girl that like became like her close friend, but she like whispers a lot, and like
Sarah.
I couldn't hear a thing that she said most of the times. Like hopefully this isn't important because your audio is very low in this mix, and I can't hear what she's saying. Let's see. What else? There's a lot of odd things. Like, why is that child wearing those clothes?
Because it's supposed to like represent like being he's rich and affluential, right? They have money.
Nobody else dressed very oddly, like very like old Victorian style.
I don't know, like he was a creepy child.
Was he creepy? That's rude. And then when that girl, was it Sarah? I don't remember. Again, everybody looks the same as well. But she's running away from somebody trying to kill her, and
Patricia,
and she jumps down into that room of like barbed wire type situation.
Oh, that was Sarah. Okay. Patricia in the beginning.
Not see that entire room is covered in this, and she just like, woo! And just like, what is wrong with you?
Well, it's supposed to be dark, right? So she wouldn't see below her. She just
sees
the light.
That was not a dark room.
Fair enough. Well, I just like, I think they do these movies where they put that light in to make it look like it's supposed to be dark, but yet the light's being used so you can see the actors. Maybe. I know, because I do think it's strange that they all put the girls in a gymnasium and they have this like seductive red light happening. And you're like, oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Good segue into the lighting and cinematography. So for me, I feel like I'm rambling on here, but
no.
One of the things, and let me know if you agree, one of the big things that people always talk about when they talk about Suspiria is the lighting, the cinematography. Yes, this movie is so beautiful. The color, the use of color. So do you agree with that?
Oh, I definitely agree. I love this film for its aesthetic look. I love the colors. I love the purples and the blues and the oranges and the reds. A lot of red. I was even noticing today, like watching the film again, like, and I've seen it so many times, like the how like certain camera angles would just like really heighten on like certain points in the film, and you're like, oh, why are they really showing us that her walking through the cockroaches or the maggots piece, right? Like so close in on her feet, or there's just started noticing these scenes that I was like, oh, like picking up on things I hadn't seen before. But the color, I am one of those people who gets sucked into the color of it, the lighting.
Okay. And that's fair. There's a lot of colors.
Mm.
And having a partner that is a cinematographer that does lighting and noticing a lot of lighting and stuff like that in movies now, because it kind of like comes part and parcel, I feel like, or I'm going to learn something.
Yeah.
I'm not very impressed by the color, like sometimes, but then there's other times very strange usages of it. Of when Susie goes into her bathroom, lit like a normal bathroom, and is throwing out her meal because she's becoming to understand that like something's wrong with this food or this drink, and like I'm just like so tired afterwards, and she's throwing it on the toilet. And the scenes that she's throwing it in the toilet is beet red. You can barely see anything. I was like, that is very strange. But then it will transition back to when she's just standing in the bathroom that's lit with like fluorescent lighting and very normal. Which is very strange to me.
Well, I guess it's trying to make it seem like that scene is strange, that the food is strange, and that like, because I always usually feel nauseous at that scene. Because like you're just getting that bright red light, and then you're just seeing just food being thrown down in the toilet, and for me, it makes me feel nauseous. Ugh.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it has like a actual physical, visceral reaction on you.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, I think that the lighting is very basic a lot of the times because now that I have seen scenes put together with lighting, it's like blue light, green light, red light. And it just is like very just primary colors, just basically just hanging out. And you're like, oh, this room is now red because there's a red light here. Just not as impressed. Like sometimes I think it looks really nice, like the corridors, more of like the aesthetics of the actual ballet academy, like how old it is and like just ornate, a little bit of Victorian old school kind of style with it. I do really like that.
Yeah, like the location is interesting, especially because it's filmed it's supposed to be in Germany, and but yeah, everyone sounds Italian or they
right.
But like it's got that interesting the architecture and everything around there to really make it that otherworldly feeling as well.
And what are your thoughts on? I mean, I know a little bit of this because you've written a little bit about it. But when on this actual like full rewatch, I realized that there's that big discussion about witches that Susie goes and meets up with that random guy that I don't understand the connection to, and then talks to that occult guy that knows everything, like who likens witches and witchcraft and the belief and all of that as like severe mental illness. And I was like, well, this is very negative. So how do you feel about that? I was like, well, that kind of rubbed me the wrong way a little bit.
Yeah, I understand that. Like that scene, it does not always feel good watching that scene. Where you're just like, yeah, it's essentially just really ill women. And when we're like, I've done historically written and talked about how back in the day, witchcraft and mental illness were constantly confused, right? Or if you're mentally ill, you're somehow involved in witchcraft or vice versa. So, and it definitely always wants to lean towards like the evil, like witches are evil and they're all about power and they're power hungry. And so, that no one could be really well-minded or well individual to, because that's all they think in that way. I think it's also interesting too, how Sarah, and the reason why Susie is talking to those two doctors is because Sarah is telling her information about the witches and stuff like that. And she goes missing. And so, but because that doctor used to be Sarah's counselor, a psychiatrist, there's all that doubt around it, right? That, because she had this instinct that something's going wrong or something's happening, but you have to doubt it because she's also had mental health issues. So don't really trust it. And I think I've talked about this before too, about how, if you've had any sort of mental health problems, that you would not be trusted if you had an idea that something was going on or something was going wrong.
I think you're talking, was that with regards to phenomena?
That
Nope.
yeah. Well, no,
Yes,
and this
that
it's distressing the feminine, and that's
right.
common in a lot of Italian horror films. Is that
Yeah.
women, if they're seeing something or something's happening, it's usually associated back to they've had past mental health issues. So yeah.
Right. So you feel uncomfortable in that scene, but you obviously still love the movie. So
Yeah, I still love the movie because I think the witches are like I was watching it my rerun again. I've watched it so many times, and I just love how it's just this random coven of witches. You have this story of the three mothers, and so there's just
Mhm.
there's Suspiria, there's Inferno, and then there's the Mother of Tears, which I still
Mhm.
have to watch. But I love that there's this mythology around these three mothers: the Mother Tears, the Mother of Sorrow, and the Mother of Death,
Mhm.
and. Um, and then just how they have these each have these covens that are associated, and they have these houses that are associated to them, and their power is
Mhm.
built into these houses and built into their coven. And I just think it's so interesting that it's like a snapshot in time of just this coven doing their thing.
Mhm.
Really, there is no, usually whenever you see any witches in a movie, there is usually a reason as to why they're doing what they're doing. There's a beginning, there's a middle, and there's an end. And
Mhm.
really, these are just witches. They're just going about their business. They have an academy. They train with other women. They probably are also trying to recruit other coven members.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden, someone decides to be snoopy and start getting
Mhm.
into their business.
Mhm.
And so they're just reacting to this kind of threat, right? Because I even had a point today where I'm just like, why is Susie doing all this? Really, she
Yeah.
just like, what do they have against her? And because I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, they're giving her these stuff, and I'm like, oh, because she spoke about how she saw Patricia leave, and so their mind,
Right.
they're like, oh,
Yeah.
she's a threat, so we
Yeah.
need to just eliminate these threats, and then we continue about our business.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
Susie doesn't
Right.
go into the film, she doesn't go in when she just finally decides to follow the witches, like what Sarah's path about, like, oh, they're going into the house and stuff like that. She wasn't going in there being like, I'm gonna go and kill the witches. She just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
acts, she just like discovers like, oh, this is actually happening.
Mhm.
And then she just ends up in a situation where she's being attacked, and she's like, well, I
Mhm.
need to defend myself, so I'll just kill the mother,
Mhm.
Mater Suspirium, and be done with it. But I'm like, she never
Yeah.
went into the movie with, I'm gonna go kill witches. So
Yeah. With
I love
ill
it.
intention.
Yes, I just love this how it's like this moment in time of this
Mm.
this coven of witches protecting themselves.
Right. Interesting.
Mhm.
Speaking of that, they kind of call him like Queen Witch, if I remember correctly. Like the head witch, the leader of
Yeah.
the coven. For somebody that's a leader of a coven, she was killed way too easily. I was like very anticlimactic
Yeah, no, and I get that. Like
for
I
me.
understand that because I've seen also when I saw Inferno, it's kind of the same way. It's like they build up Mater,
Hmm.
Suspiria, Mater,
Yeah. Yeah.
Martyr, like they build up these witches and then they die so like anticlimactically, and I find that disappointing. I
Hmm.
to see that she just dies in that way when really it could have been a little more interesting because really she should have gone up against the Tanner and the other woman, I can't remember her name, and dealt with them, right? But because she knows the
Hmm.
information is like it's like the head of a snake, you must take off the head of the cut
Yeah.
off the head to kill the body, or like they say with vampires, I think it's kind of mixing that vampire lore of
Hmm.
you kill the head vampire, you kill all the babies type deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So you also agree that the ending's slightly anticlimactic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I get also but then I get swept away by the music. So
Boy. So I have to agree that the music is fantastic. I don't think I've watched an Italian horror film where the music is not amazing. And for
yeah.
me, Suspiria's only redeeming qualities is the theme by Goblin. And when you watch the movie, it's like music by the Goblins, which I thought was really, really, really,
Yeah,
really
yeah.
funny. And that it looks really beautiful. But I mean, like, now that I've seen a bunch of Argento movies, yes, he makes very beautiful looking movies. Are there some that I
Yes.
find more aesthetically pleasing? Yes, I find
Okay.
opera much more aesthetically pleasing, but also it's very dark with like a lot of golds and black, and it's very kind of gothic, and that's a little bit more an aesthetic that I enjoy. But um yeah, I feel like the two main things that people love about it, that rant and rave about it, what makes it such a masterpiece, or like that's really the only redeeming qualities. I can appreciate that it's a shorter Argento movie, only like an hour and 40 minutes.
Yes,
I
that is
I can
true.
I can respect and appreciate that. Because, man, the pacing, Jesus. I almost fell asleep again yesterday watching this movie.
Oh no.
I feel like when it starts strong, you've got the theme, you've got that first death, you're like, oh, it's gonna be spooky, and like, what is going on in this movie? That first death is like the only good death. Like everything else is like very tame, very basic. You're off screen, you don't really see much, and it starts very strong, and then it takes a severe death dive and face plants.
Oh wow. Okay.
And it just gets so boring.
Okay. I don't know. I think the very first time I ever saw it, the scene where Daniel gets attacked by his dog, that scared me. Because of course the whole time I was also like paranoid that something was gonna happen to the dog. It was like, oh my god, the dog. I hope nothing happens to the dog. And then it just ends up being like, and then all of a sudden the dog just attacks his neck. And I remember jumping. And I still kind of like each time that happens, like still kind of jump a bit. But yeah.
To me, I agree that's a well done scene. But like I feel like that was very drawn out as well. This like random blind man that does the music for the Ballet Academy. Again, weird Italian horror things.
It has its elements in the story where it's like, I don't understand why the child just egged on the dog to bite him and now they're going to, but then a part of me wants to think like maybe they needed something for a spell and they just had to, certain deaths had to happen for a certain spell to go through. But maybe. Yeah, so I understand Suspiria is also very light on its witch elements and stuff like that. But there's a part of me that kind of likes that it's like it's still mysterious to me, and that's probably why I, when I first watched it, I'm like, I need to watch the other two because I want to know more about the Mater, the witches, and so. And I still have to, the only thing is like I haven't watched Mother of Tears yet because I know people are very disappointed by it. Right. And they're like, for a trilogy to end so poorly. But I will watch
it. You should. I mean, round everything out, get like a solidified final opinion on the whole thing. I'm not surprised that people are disappointed by it. I haven't even seen it. I don't need to see it. I don't want to see it. I don't care about it, but I'm not surprised that it's not that, interesting. I have a couple of notes of things I like about it. So the dead Sarah, so the dead friend at the end is really, really grim looking. I was like, okay, thank you. At the very end of this movie that I've had to live through, now you're showing me something like visually arresting and appealing and like stuff in the eyes, and like you thought she was dead, and then is she just like not dead or
living dead.
I was gonna say she had like the spirit of something in her or something. I wasn't really sure, but she was not dead. Spoilers for a movie from the 70s. Sarah's not dead.
Love the shoulder movement in there.
Sarah's not dead. That's pretty much like my main likes, dislikes, and gripes about this movie. So tell me more of why like you watch it all the time and that you just like love it. Like what's like an exact moment besides the music where you said you get swept away with, like that you're like, this fucking movie is so good that it's in my top 5 of all time that I've seen?
Okay, honestly, like the beginning always sweeps me away. The way it starts with like Sarah walking through the airport and like the music's coming on and off type thing. And it's just like such a good intro that I love so much. I love all the music. I love whenever there's a scene that happens and like the music starts happening. Like I even love that scene where the dog, even though it's played out, the witches are coming in, they're attacking and stuff like that. The music that's playing, the imagery that's happening in that scene, you just kind of get really into it, and you're just waiting. You're like, when is it going to happen? What's going to happen? Like, they're swarming. I think Tanner is like the actress who plays the Tanner. She is the witch that works for not the directress, not for the headmistress, but she's like the very severe looking one who has like the huge smile whenever she's yelling.
Oh, she's like the dance teacher.
she's a dance teacher, but she also
Right.
like
Yeah.
runs the household and stuff like that. But she's so
Yeah.
severe looking,
Yeah.
and yet she's so everything that comes out of her mouth, you're like, is this a joke, a command? Are you snarling? Like, what is
Yeah.
happening? And
Yeah.
I love that kind of creepy element of her.
Right.
I think Susie is an interesting character. I like how in the beginning she's very much like, no, this is what I want. I want to live off campus, right? Or she's not
Mm-hmm.
afraid to kind of speak her mind, and that's all of a sudden that's why the witches are all like, oh, she's a threat, she's a problem. We
Mm-hmm.
need to kind of like address this. And so I just
Mm-hmm.
kind of like how it's kind of like this randomness that's just happening, this kind of chaos that just
Right.
happens. It just, the situation is happening. There's something, and also like too, I do even though the ending is anticlimactic, I love the ending of it. And that's
Mm-hmm.
when like she comes out of the house and like she's walking out and stuff like that. And you got all the different colors and all of a sudden like the fire burst and then the music's like boom. So I really love the elements of the film that have like
Right.
the imagery and the music coming together and just creating like this really impactful moment. Like there's just those are
Mm-hmm.
scenes that I always remember and always hear and
Mm-hmm.
I look forward to when I go to watch it.
Right.
So
Right.
and like I said, seeing this film, like I don't have the best version of it. Like I have an old
Right.
DVD copy that I got years ago, but when I saw it in the Mayfair Theater with its like retooled and remastered, it was just like
Mm-hmm.
totally sucked into like when you see that version of it, you're totally
Mm-hmm.
sucked in because you're like, this is a different way to
Mm-hmm.
see this film. And I love that. And then when I saw it live, like heard the music
Mm-hmm.
being played live with it, there was just
Mm-hmm.
another added experience to it. So now I have like all these
Mm-hmm.
really fun memories that are attached around this
Right.
film as well. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Hmm.
So all of the high accolades you think are well deserved.
I think so. I do. I am with those fans out there.
I know that my opinion is not of the common majority.
It's
So this will
not,
be
but I have
interesting.
heard.
This will be interesting to see what everybody else thinks. Maybe start a little conversation
Yeah,
in our socials and on our Coven group. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about that. Final thoughts and final words is that I think it's a okay movie. I think it's a very fine movie. It looks nice and it sounds nice. And I think, yes, I think Susie is kind of also kind of a highlight with her acting abilities. And I think she did a really good job playing her role. But beyond that, it's slow and it's uninteresting, and I almost fell asleep. And I've fallen asleep many times. It does not grab me, and so therefore, I think it is overrated.
okay. Well, for me, I love this film. Like I said, it's because it falls in the genre of 1970s horror, which is also very close to my heart, and also because I think that this film was one of the very first few films I ever saw getting into the horror genre, and it was the film that started me into the path of Italian horror, which once again is another big top types of film out there that I really love about Suspiria. And to me, it's a comfortable movie. I go back to and I enjoy it. I know what to expect, and it gives me like a warm feeling inside when I'm watching it. So that's why I love Suspiria. That's why I would defend it.
To the death.
To the death.
You're very sweet, and you have a lot of heart, and very empathetic. And sentimental.
I am very sentimental.
And I am not. So
The fact that you can bring up the story of Kelly falling asleep during the time we watched first time we ever watched it together. And it
Oh my
holds
god, that
immense.
happens a lot, actually, apparently. Oh, I'm like, I gotta show you this movie. I pass out and you're left alone to watch it in the dark. Jesus. Yeah, that happens a lot, folks. When you've seen a lot, you're just like, I'm just gonna fall asleep now. It's late. I'm tired. I'm old.
Yeah.
But I think
after 8.
yeah, right. Oh my god. But this is like the first of many that we'll do. I know we'll run into movies that are like called the classics that either one of us likes and the other one doesn't.
Yep.
And of course there might be nostalgia, as portions of it, which I think is a little bit of sentimentality. So we'll kind of see where this all leads, folks. Let us know what you think. If you like it and you want to see more, let us know.
Yeah, send us a message on the Twitters or the Facebooks. And I'm talking like an old woman right now because that's how I am.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this little mini episode.
Yeah, and we'll see you next time for Spinster versus Spinster. Bye.
Bye.